The rain hammered against the windows of Romano's diner like thousands of angry fingers demanding entrance. It was nearly midnight on a Tuesday in Brooklyn, and the neon sign outside flickered intermittently, casting unstable shadows across the wet pavement. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed their monotonous song while Maya Torres wiped down the last table of her shift, her lower back aching from 12 straight hours on her feet. Maya was 28, but felt older most days. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her uniform, a pale blue dress with Romanos embroidered on the pocket, had seen better years, just like everything else in her life. She moved with practiced efficiency, her hands working automatically while her mind drifted to the stack of overdue bills waiting on her kitchen table. "You heading out soon, Maya?" Frank Romano called from behind the counter. The owner was in his 60s with a weathered face that had seen the neighborhood transform from working-class Italian to a patchwork of struggling families from everywhere. He'd owned this diner for 40 years, and it showed in every cracked vinyl booth and chipped coffee cup. "Just finishing up, Frank. You go ahead, I'll lock up." Frank nodded gratefully. His arthritis had been acting up again, and Maya knew he was eager to get home to his wife. "You're a good kid, Maya. Don't stay too late. This neighborhood ain't what it used to be." Maya smiled tiredly. "None of them are, Frank. None of them are." The bell above the door chimed as Frank shuffled out into the rain, his jacket pulled tight against the November cold. Maya watched him disappear down the street before returning to her closing duties. She counted the register, wiped down the counter, and refilled the sugar dispensers for the morning shift. The familiar routine was comforting in its predictability. She was carrying a bag of trash toward the back door when she heard it, a low, pained whimper coming from the alley. Maya froze, listening. There it was again, unmistakable in the brief pause between thunderclaps. "Probably a cat," she muttered to herself, but her feet were already moving toward the back entrance. She'd never been good at ignoring things that were hurting. The alley behind Romano's was narrow and poorly lit, filled with dumpsters and the constant smell of rotting food. Rain poured down in sheets, and Maya immediately regretted not grabbing her jacket. She squinted into the darkness, searching for the source of the sound. Then she saw him. Huddled between two dumpsters was a bulldog, and even in the dim light, Maya could see he was in bad shape. The dog's white and brown coat was matted with mud and something darker, blood. His left front leg was held at an awkward angle, and there was a nasty gash along his side. When he saw Maya, he didn't growl or bark. Instead, he simply looked at her with dark, intelligent eyes that held more sadness than any animal should know. "Oh, you poor thing," Maya whispered, crouching down slowly. She extended her hand, letting the dog catch her scent. "What happened to you, buddy?" The bulldog sniffed her fingers tentatively, then gave them a weak lick. Maya's heart clenched. She'd never been able to afford a pet, could barely afford to feed herself most weeks, but she'd always loved animals. This dog was clearly someone's beloved companion. His nails were trimmed, and beneath the mud and blood, his coat had been well maintained. Someone was missing him. Someone was probably worried sick. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's get you inside where it's warm." The dog tried to stand but yelped in pain when he put weight on his injured leg. Without hesitation, Maya scooped him up, grunting at his solid weight. Bulldogs were compact but heavy, and this one was no exception. She carried him through the back door and into the diner's kitchen, kicking the door closed behind her. In the harsh fluorescent light, the dog's injuries looked even worse. The gash along his side was deep, but not life-threatening, and his leg appeared to be badly bruised rather than broken. Maya grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink. Frank kept it well stocked for kitchen accidents, and set to work. "This might sting a little," she warned, cleaning the wound with antiseptic. The dog flinched but didn't pull away, as if he understood she was trying to help. Maya worked carefully, her hands steady despite her exhaustion. She'd picked up basic first aid skills from necessity, couldn't afford doctors for every scrape and bruise, and while she was no veterinarian, she knew enough to help. She bandaged the gash as best she could and examined the leg more carefully. Definitely bruised, possibly sprained, but he could put some weight on it if he moved slowly. "You're lucky," Maya told him. "Could have been a lot worse. What were you doing out there? Did you get hit by a car?" The dog watched her with those soulful eyes, and Maya found herself talking to him like he might answer. "You're hungry, aren't you?" "I know that look. I see it in the mirror every day." She'd planned to take home the leftover meatloaf from tonight's special, her dinner for the next 2 days. But looking at the dog's thin frame beneath his stocky build, she made a different choice. Maya heated up the meatloaf and set it on a plate on the floor. The dog ate carefully but eagerly, as if he hadn't seen food in days. "We need to find your owner," Maya said, checking his neck for a collar. There was an indent in his fur where one had been, but no collar remained. "Someone's looking for you, I bet. Someone who takes good care of you, judging by those teeth." She filled a bowl with water, and the dog drank gratefully. As he finished, Maya noticed something else, a small tattoo inside his ear. Just 3 letters, VCR, registry numbers, a breeder's mark. She made a mental note to check with local vets in the morning. The dog finished eating and limped over to where Maya sat on the floor, her back against the counter. To her surprise, he laid his heavy head in her lap, looking up at her with an expression of complete trust. Maya felt something crack open in her chest, that lonely place she usually kept locked down tight. "I'd keep you if I could," she whispered, stroking his broad head. "But my apartment doesn't allow pets, and even if they did, I can barely keep myself fed, much less a dog, especially a big guy like you. But we'll find your family, okay, I promise." The bell above the front door chimed. Maya's head snapped up. She'd locked that door. She was sure of it. The dog's ears perked up and a low rumble started in his chest, not quite a growl, but close. "Hello?" Maya called out, her voice steadier than she felt. "We're closed." 3 men walked into the dining area, and Maya's blood went cold. They moved with a predatory confidence that sent every alarm bell in her head ringing. The first was tall and thin, with a spiderweb tattoo crawling up his neck. The second was shorter but built like a brick wall, his knuckles scarred and swollen. The third hung back, younger than the others, with nervous eyes that darted around the empty diner. All 3 were wearing jackets despite the warm diner, and Maya didn't need to be a genius to guess why. She'd lived in this neighborhood long enough to recognize trouble when it walked through the door. "I said we're closed," Maya repeated, getting slowly to her feet. The dog stood too, moving to position himself between Maya and the men despite his injuries. That rumble in his chest grew louder. The tall one smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Relax, sweetheart. We're not here for coffee." His gaze swept the diner before landing on the dog. His smile vanished. "That's a nice dog you got there. He's injured. I'm taking care of him until I can find his owner." "Funny thing about that," the brick wall said, taking a step closer. His voice was rough, like gravel in a blender. "We've been looking for that particular dog." Maya's mind raced. These men didn't look like worried pet owners. They looked like exactly the kind of people who might hurt an animal. "Do you have proof he's yours? Vet records? Photos?" The tall one laughed, a harsh sound that held no humor. "We don't need to prove nothing to you, girl. Hand over the dog and maybe we forget we saw you here." "No." The word came out stronger than Maya felt. Her hands were shaking, but she clenched them into fists to hide it. "If he's your dog, we can sort it out properly. Through the police or animal control or—" "Bad answer," the brick wall growled. They moved fast. The younger one circled around to block the front exit while the other 2 advanced. The bulldog's rumble became a full bark, deep and threatening despite his injuries. He lunged forward, putting himself between Maya and the men, his teeth bared. "Stupid mutt," the tall one spat. He pulled out a metal pipe from inside his jacket. Everything happened in seconds, but felt like hours. The tall one swung at the dog. Maya didn't think. She just moved, throwing herself forward to shield the animal with her own body. The pipe caught her across the shoulder, and white-hot pain exploded through her arm. She screamed but didn't let go of the dog. "Get off him!" she shouted. The brick wall grabbed her hair, yanking her backward. Maya's scalp burned, but she twisted in his grip, trying to break free. The dog was barking frantically now, trying to reach her but unable to move quickly on his injured leg. "Crazy," the brick wall started to say, but Maya drove her elbow backward, catching him in the ribs. He grunted, but didn't let go. Instead, he threw her against the counter. Maya's hip connected with the corner and she felt something crack. Pain radiated through her entire side. She tried to get up, but the tall one kicked her, once, twice, 3 times. Maya curled into a ball, trying to protect her vital organs the way she'd learned in a self-defense class she'd taken years ago. Through the ringing in her ears, she could hear the dog barking, the men cursing, the crash of dishes breaking. "Should we just take it?" the younger one asked, his voice high with panic. "Grab the mutt and let's go," the brick wall ordered. But when they approached the dog, he snapped viciously, catching the tall one's hand. The man howled, jerking backward. "Forget it, let's get out of here." The bell chimed as the front door burst open. "Maya!" Frank's voice rang out. "I saw the lights still. What in God's name?" The 3 men bolted, pushing past Frank and disappearing into the rain. Frank rushed to Maya's side, his phone already out. "Don't move, sweetheart, I'm calling an ambulance and the police." "No ambulance," Maya gasped, each breath sending spikes of agony through her ribs. "Can't afford it, just help me up." "Maya." "Please, Frank." The old man looked torn but helped her sit up slowly. Every movement was torture, but nothing felt broken. Just bruised. Badly bruised. The dog limped over, whining softly, and pressed his warm body against her side as if offering comfort. "Who were those men?" Frank demanded. "What did they want?" "The dog," Maya managed. "They wanted the dog." Frank looked at the bulldog with new suspicion. "What kind of dog has people breaking into diners at midnight?" "I don't know," Maya admitted. "But I'm not letting them have him." While Frank called the police, Maya sat on the floor with the dog, both of them battered and exhausted. She ran her hand over his broad head, and he leaned into her touch. In that moment, Maya made a decision that would change her life forever. She would protect this dog no matter what. She didn't know who he belonged to or why dangerous men were hunting him, but she knew one thing for certain. Nobody was going to hurt him again, not on her watch. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the city clean of its daily sins. But inside Romano's diner, new sins were being written. Debts that would demand payment, consequences that would ripple through the criminal underworld, and connections that would bind together people from completely different worlds. All because a waitress with nothing to lose decided that some things were worth fighting for. Maya's apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up in a building that had seen better decades. The elevator had been broken for 3 years and the landlord kept promising to fix it next month. Tonight, every step up those stairs felt like climbing a mountain. Her ribs screamed with each breath, her shoulder throbbed where the pipe had connected, and her hip sent shooting pains down her leg with every movement. But she kept climbing, the bulldog limping gamely beside her, taking the steps slowly on his injured leg. "Almost there, buddy," Maya whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was reassuring the dog or herself. Just one more flight. The police had come to Romano's, taken her statement, and left with promises to look into it that Maya knew meant absolutely nothing. They'd seen the security footage. 3 men in dark jackets, faces partially obscured. In a city of 8 million people, these men were ghosts. Frank had wanted to take her to the hospital, but Maya had refused. One night in the ER would cost her 2 months' rent. She'd survive. She always did. Her apartment was small, a studio with a kitchenette, a bathroom the size of a closet, and a single window that looked out onto a brick wall. But it was hers, and it was clean. Maya had made sure of that. She couldn't afford much, but she could afford soap and elbow grease. She filled a bowl with water for the dog and collapsed onto her second-hand couch, every muscle in her body protesting. The bulldog drank deeply, then limped over and sat at her feet, looking up at her with those dark, intelligent eyes. "What's your story?" Maya asked softly, reaching down to stroke his head. "Who are you? And why do bad people want you so badly?" The dog just leaned into her touch, and despite everything, the pain, the fear, the uncertainty, Maya felt a small smile tug at her lips. In the harsh light of her apartment, she could see him more clearly. His coat was white with brown patches, and despite his injuries, he was a beautiful animal. Someone had loved him once. Someone probably still did. She checked his wounds again, relieved to see no fresh bleeding. We'll get you to a vet tomorrow. A free clinic, maybe. Figure out who you belong to." Maya paused, a thought occurring to her. "Unless your owners are the ones who hurt you. In that case, you're staying with me. Lease agreement be damned." Her phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, her co-worker at the diner. "Frank told me what happened. Are you okay? Do you need anything?" Maya typed back with her good hand. "I'm fine. Just bruised. Taking tomorrow off to recover." The lie came easily. She couldn't afford to take tomorrow off. Couldn't afford to take any day off. But she also couldn't go to work looking like she'd lost a fight with a truck. She'd figure something out. She always did. Across the city, in a penthouse overlooking Central Park, Vincent Russo stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows and watched the rain streak down the glass. He was 45 years old, though his eyes carried the weight of many more years. His suit was custom-tailored, his watch cost more than most people's cars, and his reputation could make grown men weep. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, Vincent Russo was simply a man who had lost something precious. "Still no word?" he asked without turning around. Behind him, Marcus Chen shifted uncomfortably. Marcus had been Vincent's right hand for 15 years, and in all that time he'd never seen his boss like this. "No, sir. We've checked every shelter, every vet clinic, every pound in a 50-mile radius. It's like Bruno vanished." Vincent's jaw tightened. Bruno. His daughter's dog. The last piece of her he had left. The memory hit him like it always did, sudden and sharp. Elena, 8 years old, begging for a puppy. Vincent had said no at first. His life was too dangerous, too complicated for a pet. But Elena had those eyes, her mother's eyes, and she'd looked at him with such hope that he'd caved. They'd picked Bruno out together from a breeder in Connecticut. Elena had been so careful in her choice, sitting with each puppy to see which one felt right. When the chunky bulldog puppy had waddled over and fallen asleep in her lap, she'd declared him perfect. That was 6 years ago, before the cancer, before the treatments that didn't work, before Vincent had held his daughter's hand as she slipped away, her last words a whispered request. "Take care of Bruno, Daddy. Promise?" He'd promised, and now Bruno was gone. "Expand the search," Vincent said quietly. "Every neighborhood, every street. I want him found." "Vincent." A woman's voice came from the doorway. Angela Russo, Vincent's sister, walked into the room with the confidence of someone who'd never been afraid of anything. She ran half of Vincent's legitimate businesses and most of his illegitimate ones. "You need to sleep. You haven't closed your eyes in 2 days." "I can't sleep while he's out there." Vincent finally turned from the window. His face was haggard, dark circles under his eyes. "He's hurt, Angela. I can feel it. He needs me." Angela's expression softened. She'd loved Elena too. They all had. "We'll find him. But you're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion." Vincent's phone rang. Marcus's number. "Tell me you have something." "We found the 3 idiots who've been causing trouble in Brooklyn," Marcus said, his voice tight with anger. "The ones shaking down small businesses. They were spotted near Romano's diner around midnight. Boss, I think we should talk to them." Something cold settled in Vincent's chest. "Bring them to the warehouse, all 3. And Marcus, make sure they understand this isn't a social call." He hung up and looked at Angela. "Get the car." The warehouse in Red Hook was one of several properties Vincent owned through shell corporations. It was clean, climate-controlled, and notably absent of prying eyes or security cameras. Vincent used it for meetings that required privacy. Tonight's meeting would require a great deal of privacy. The 3 men were already there when Vincent arrived, zip-tied to chairs in the center of the empty space. The tall one with the spider web tattoo looked defiant. The brick wall looked angry. The young one looked terrified. "Gentlemen," Vincent said pleasantly, walking in a slow circle around them. "Thank you for joining me this evening. I understand you've been very busy lately, shaking down business owners, intimidating workers, making a general nuisance of yourselves." "We don't know what you're talking about," Spiderweb spat. Vincent smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Let me be more specific. Romano's diner. Midnight. Does that ring any bells?" The 3 men exchanged glances, and Vincent saw the moment understanding hit them. The young one went pale. We didn't know. The brick wall stammered. We were just what? Vincent's voice remained pleasant, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Just breaking into a diner? Just attacking a woman trying to close up, or? His voice went dangerously soft. Just trying to take something that doesn't belong to you? Marcus stepped forward with a tablet, pulling up security footage. Vincent hadn't seen it yet. When the video played, he watched in silence as 3 men entered the diner. Watched as they confronted a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Watched as a bulldog, his bulldog, positioned himself protectively in front of her. And then he watched as this woman, this stranger, threw herself over Bruno to protect him from the pipe. Watched her take the blow meant for his dog. Watched her curl up as they kicked her again and again while Bruno barked frantically trying to reach her. Vincent's hands clenched into fists. The pleasant mask slipped, revealing something much darker underneath. "That's my dog," he said softly. "The one you tried to take, the one you hurt." "We didn't—" Spiderweb started, but Vincent held up a hand. "And that woman, that brave, foolish woman who put herself between you and a dog she'd just met, you hurt her too. Do you understand what you've done?" The young one started crying. "Please, Mr. Russo, we didn't know it was your dog. We thought— Carlos said it was just a stray that had wandered into the diner. We were supposed to grab it for—" "Shut up!" The brick wall. "Carlos!" shouted. But it was too late. Vincent's eyes narrowed. "For whom? Who hired you to find my dog?" Silence. Vincent looked at Marcus, who stepped forward with a look that made all 3 men flinch. "Tony Marchetti," the young one blurted out. "He hired us. Said there was a reward for bringing him any bulldog we found. Didn't say why." Vincent's expression went cold. Tony Marchetti. A rival looking to gain leverage, probably. It didn't matter. What mattered was that these 3 fools had hurt an innocent woman and traumatized his daughter's dog. "Where is he now?" Vincent asked quietly. "The dog. Where did he go?" "The woman took him," Carlos muttered. "She wouldn't let go of him even when she took him with her." Vincent pulled up the security footage again, freezing on a frame that showed the woman's face clearly. She was young, maybe late 20s, with strong features and eyes that held more determination than fear. Even bruised and bleeding, she'd held on to Bruno. "Find her," Vincent told Marcus. "I want a name, an address, everything, and I want it within the hour." "What about them?" Marcus gestured to the 3 men. Vincent looked at them for a long moment. These 3 had hurt his dog, had hurt a woman who'd shown Bruno nothing but kindness. In his world, there were consequences for such actions, permanent consequences. But he thought of Elena, of how she'd loved Bruno, of how she'd made Vincent promise to take care of him. Elena had been kind, even when kindness wasn't deserved. She would have wanted mercy. "Let them go," Vincent said finally. "But make sure Tony Marchetti knows they talked, and make sure they understand that if I see their faces in this city again, they won't get a second chance." The 3 men were hauled out, and Vincent turned his attention back to the frozen image on the tablet. This woman, this waitress, had saved his dog, had protected Bruno with her own body, asked for nothing in return, and taken him somewhere safe. Vincent Russo always paid his debts. Always. "Marcus," he said quietly, "when you find her, I want to know everything. Her name, her life, her debts, everything, and then I'm going to pay her a visit." "Should I arrange security? If Marchetti knows about Bruno?" "I'll handle Marchetti," Vincent interrupted. "Right now I just want my daughter's dog back. And I want to thank the woman who saved him." Marcus nodded and left to make calls. Angela approached her brother, studying his face. "You're planning something. Someone showed Bruno kindness when he needed it most," Vincent said simply. "That deserves to be acknowledged." "It's more than that." Angela knew her brother too well. "You saw that footage. Saw how she protected him." Vincent didn't answer, but his eyes returned to the image of the young waitress, battered but unbowed, cradling Bruno in her arms. In his world, loyalty was currency. Courage was rare. This woman had shown both, without any knowledge of who Bruno belonged to or what protection that might offer. She'd simply done what was right. Consequences be damned. Vincent Russo respected that more than anything money could buy. Find her, he repeated, and make sure she's safe. If Marchetti's people come looking again, I want our people there first. As dawn began to break over the city, Vincent finally allowed himself to feel hope. Bruno was alive. He was being cared for by someone who'd proven willing to sacrifice her own safety for his. And soon, very soon, Vincent would have his daughter's dog back. And the woman who saved him? She'd discover that Vincent Russo never forgot a kindness, never forgot a debt, and he always paid what he owed. Maya woke to the sensation of warm breath on her face. She opened her eyes to find the bulldog sitting beside the couch, his dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that suggested he'd been watching her sleep for some time. Morning light filtered through her single window, weak and gray. "Good morning to you too," Maya mumbled, wincing as she tried to sit up. Every muscle in her body had stiffened overnight, and the bruises had bloomed into spectacular shades of purple and black. Her ribs protested with sharp pains, her shoulder felt like it had been hit with a sledgehammer, and her hip had swollen to twice its normal size. The dog whined softly, nudging her hand with his broad head. "I know, buddy. You need to go out." Maya forced herself to stand, biting back a groan. She'd slept in her clothes, too exhausted and hurt to change. Now they were wrinkled and spotted with dried blood, some hers, some the dog's. She clipped a makeshift leash onto the dog's collar, a belt from her closet, and hobbled down the 4 flights of stairs. Each step was agony, but she gritted her teeth and kept going. The dog was patient with her slow pace, staying close to her side as if he understood she was hurting. Outside, the November morning was crisp and cold. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets washed clean and glistening. Maya found a small patch of grass near her building and waited while the dog took care of his business. A few neighbors passed by, giving her curious looks, probably wondering about her bruised face and the unfamiliar dog. "Come on," Maya said softly. "Let's get you some breakfast." Back in her apartment, she opened a can of tuna, meant for her own lunch, and mixed it with some rice. The dog ate gratefully while Maya examined his wounds in the better light. The gash on his side looked clean, no signs of infection. His legs seemed better too, bearing weight more easily than yesterday. "You're a tough one," she told him, running her hand over his muscular shoulders. "Someone trained you well. Loved you well." Her phone buzzed. "Sarah again. How are you feeling? Frank wants to know if you can work tonight." Maya's heart sank. She'd hoped for at least one day to recover, but bills didn't pause for injuries. She typed back, "Tell him I'll be there." She looked at the dog. "I need to find you a safe place today. Can't leave you alone in here. Landlord does random inspections, and I definitely can't afford the pet deposit even if he'd allow it." The dog tilted his head as if considering her words. Maya smiled despite her pain. "You're a good listener, I'll give you that." She was trying to figure out her next move when 3 sharp knocks sounded at her door. Maya froze. Nobody visited her. Ever. Sarah lived across town. Frank never left his neighborhood, and Maya had learned long ago to keep to herself. "Miss Torres?" A man's voice, deep and professional. "My name is Marcus Chen. I need to speak with you about the dog you're caring for." Maya's blood went cold. How did they know her name? How did they know where she lived? She grabbed her phone, ready to call 911, and moved to stand between the door and the dog. "I don't know what you're talking about," she called through the door, proud that her voice didn't shake. "Miss Torres, I understand your caution, but I'm not here to hurt you or the dog. I'm here on behalf of his owner. May I show you something? I'm going to slide some photos under your door." Maya waited, every nerve on edge. Slowly, 3 photographs slid under her door. She picked them up with trembling hands. The first showed a little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with dark curls and a radiant smile. She was hugging the bulldog, unmistakably the same dog, and both looked deliriously happy. The second photo showed the same girl, a bit older, asleep on a couch with the dog curled protectively against her. The third photo made Maya's throat tighten. The girl, pale and thin, in what was clearly a hospital bed. The bulldog lay beside her, his head resting on her chest. Her name was Elena, Marcus said through the door, his voice gentler now. She passed away 2 years ago. Cancer. That dog was her best friend, her companion through everything. Her father promised her he'd take care of Bruno. He's been searching for him since Bruno went missing 3 days ago. Maya looked down at the dog, at Bruno. He was watching her with those intelligent eyes, and she could have sworn she saw understanding there. Grief. How do I know you're telling the truth? Maya asked, though her heart already believed it. The photos were too real, too raw to be fake. You don't, Marcus admitted. But Bruno knows. Open the door just enough for him to see me. If he doesn't recognize me, I'll leave. Maya hesitated, then made her decision. She unchained the door and opened it a crack, keeping her body blocking the entrance. Marcus Chen stood in the hallway, an Asian man in his 40s wearing an expensive suit and an expression of genuine concern. When Bruno saw him, his entire body began to wiggle with excitement. He whined and pushed against Maya's legs, trying to reach Marcus. The recognition was unmistakable. Maya opened the door wider. Come in, but I'm keeping my phone in my hand and my neighbor knows you're here. The last part was a lie, but Marcus didn't need to know that. That's smart, Marcus said, stepping inside. He crouched down and Bruno limped over to him, tail wagging frantically. Marcus ran his hands over the dog, checking his injuries with practiced ease. Hey, buddy, we've been looking everywhere for you. Your dad is going crazy with worry. His dad? Maya asked. Marcus stood and his expression was serious. Vincent Russo. He's a businessman. A very successful businessman. And Bruno is the most important thing in his life. Maya's stomach dropped. She'd lived in New York long enough to know that name. Vincent Russo. Everyone knew that name, even if they pretended not to. He was the kind of man you read about in the news when someone important got arrested or someone problematic disappeared. The kind of man you avoided at all costs. Oh God, Maya breathed. Those men last night, they were trying to take Bruno because of who his owner is? Something like that, Marcus confirmed. But that's being handled. Right now, Mr. Russo would like to come here himself to collect Bruno, and to thank you personally for taking care of him. He wants to come here, to my apartment? Maya looked around at her tiny, shabby studio, at her second-hand furniture and her dishes drying in the rack, at the stack of overdue bills on her counter. I don't think that's a good idea. He insists, Marcus said. He's already on his way. He'll be here in 10 minutes. Maya felt panic rising. You can't just... I need to clean, I need to change... She gestured helplessly at her bruised face, her blood-stained clothes. Marcus's expression softened. Miss Torres. Mr. Russo saw the security footage from the diner. He knows what you did. How you protected Bruno even when it put you in danger. He's not coming here to judge your apartment. He's coming here to thank you. I don't want thanks, Maya said firmly. I just did what anyone would do. What anyone should do. That's where you're wrong, Marcus said quietly. Most people wouldn't. Most people would have called animal control and walked away. You didn't. That means something. Before Maya could respond, there was another knock at the door. Marcus checked his phone. That's him. Maya's hands were shaking as Marcus opened the door. Vincent Russo stepped into her apartment, and despite everything she'd been told, Maya wasn't prepared for the reality of him. He was tall, over 6 feet, with dark hair graying at the temples and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His suit probably cost more than Maya's annual rent, and he moved with the quiet confidence of someone who'd never had to ask for anything twice. But what struck Maya most was his face when he saw Bruno. All that power, all that danger. It melted away. Vincent Russo dropped to his knees, and Bruno rushed to him as fast as his injured leg would allow. The man wrapped his arms around the dog and his shoulders shook. He was crying. Maya looked away, feeling like she was intruding on something private. She heard Vincent speaking softly to Bruno in Italian, words she didn't understand but whose meaning was crystal clear. This was a man who loved his dog. This was a father keeping a promise to his daughter. After a long moment, Vincent stood, wiping his eyes unselfconsciously. When he looked at Maya, his gaze was intense. You saved him. I just found him in an alley, Maya said, uncomfortable with the weight of his gratitude. He was hurt. I couldn't leave him there. Those men hurt you. It wasn't a question. Vincent's eyes tracked over her bruised face, her swollen jaw, the way she held her ribs. Because you wouldn't give him up. They wanted to take him. I couldn't let them. Maya lifted her chin despite the pain it caused. I didn't know who he belonged to. I just knew he needed help. Vincent studied her for a long moment. What's your name? Maya. Maya Torres. Maya. He said it carefully, as if committing it to memory. Marcus tells me you work at Romano's diner. How long? 3 years. Why? Instead of answering, Vincent walked slowly around her small apartment. Maya felt exposed, vulnerable, as this powerful man took in every detail of her life. The stack of bills, the nearly empty refrigerator she'd opened earlier, the clothes hanging to dry on a line by the window, the way she'd made something livable out of almost nothing. He stopped at her counter and picked up one of the bills. A hospital statement from 6 months ago. Maya's face burned with embarrassment. That's from when I got pneumonia, she said defensively. I'm paying it off. $20 a month, it's all I can afford. Vincent set the bill down carefully. You took Bruno to your apartment even though you can't afford a pet. You fed him your own food. You treated his injuries with supplies you probably couldn't afford to replace. And when men came to take him, you put yourself between them and a dog you'd just met. He turned to face her. Why? Maya blinked. Because it was the right thing to do. Because he was hurt and scared and needed help. Because... She stopped, struggling to put it into words. Because sometimes doing the right thing is more important than doing the safe thing. Something flickered in Vincent's eyes. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. Those men won't bother you again, ever, I've made sure of it. I don't need your protection, Maya said, even though the thought of those men coming back made her knees weak. Perhaps not. But you have it anyway. Vincent pulled an envelope from his inside pocket. This is for Bruno's medical care. And for yours. Maya didn't take it. I don't want your money. It's not a gift. It's a debt. You cared for something precious to me. You were injured doing so. This is what's owed. Nothing is owed, Maya insisted. I didn't help Bruno because I expected payment. I helped him because he needed help, that's all. Vincent stared at her as if she'd spoken a foreign language. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in the corner. Bruno sat between them, looking from one to the other. Everyone wants something, Vincent said finally. Then I'm not everyone. Maya crossed her arms, then winced as the movement pulled at her ribs. Take Bruno home. Make sure his leg heals properly. That's all I want. You're in pain, Vincent observed. Have you seen a doctor? Can't afford it. That's unacceptable. Maya laughed, but it came out bitter. Welcome to how most people live, Mr. Russo. We choose between medicine and rent, food and electricity. It's not unacceptable, it's just reality. Vincent looked at Marcus. Get our doctor here, now. No, Maya said firmly. No doctors, I'm fine, just bruised. Ribs might be cracked, Vincent said. And it wasn't a guess, it was a diagnosis from someone who'd seen his share of injuries. Shoulders badly bruised, possibly torn ligaments. Hip could be fractured. You need medical attention. What I need is for you to take your dog and go, Maya said. Exhaustion and pain making her reckless. I'm glad Bruno has someone who loves him. I'm glad he's going home. But I don't want your money. I don't want your doctor. And I don't want to be involved in whatever it is you do. I just want my life back. The silence that followed was heavy. Marcus looked like he was watching a bomb countdown. Vincent's expression was unreadable. Then, slowly, Vincent picked up the photos Marcus had brought. He handed them to Maya. Keep these. So you remember Elena. And so you remember that what you did mattered. Maya took the photos with trembling hands. The little girl's smile was radiant, full of life and joy. She was beautiful. She was everything, Vincent said quietly. And Bruno was her everything. You saved the last piece of her I have left. That's not a debt I can repay with money. He pulled out a card and set it on Maya's counter. If you ever need anything, anything at all, you call that number. Day or night. No questions asked. I won't call. Maybe not. But you'll keep the card. He moved toward the door and Bruno followed, then hesitated. The dog looked back at Maya, whining softly. Go on, Maya said, her throat tight. Go home with your dad. Be safe. Bruno licked her hand once, then limped after Vincent. At the door, Vincent paused. The men who hurt you, they'll face consequences, and the one who hired them will face worse. That's not negotiable. I don't want revenge, Maya said. I just want to be left alone. Then you'll be left alone, Vincent agreed. But you'll be protected while you're alone, whether you want it or not. After they left, Maya sank onto her couch and let herself cry. For the pain, for the fear, for the strange sadness of saying goodbye to a dog she'd known for less than 24 hours. When she finally stopped, she noticed the envelope Vincent had left on her counter. She shouldn't open it, shouldn't take his money. But curiosity won out. Inside were 50 $100 bills, $5,000, more money than Maya had seen in her entire life. And beneath it, a note in strong, slanted handwriting. For the bravest woman I've ever met. Use it or don't, but know that you earned it. VR Maya stared at the money for a long time. Then she put it back in the envelope and tucked it under her mattress. She wouldn't spend it. She couldn't. Taking Vincent Russo's money felt like opening a door she could never close. But she also couldn't bring herself to throw it away. Outside her window, the city continued its endless noise. Somewhere out there, Bruno was going home. Somewhere out there, Vincent Russo was returning to his world of power and shadows. And somewhere in between, Maya Torres was trying to figure out what happened when two completely different worlds collided. She had no way of knowing that this wasn't the end of their story. It was only the beginning. 3 weeks had passed since Vincent Russo had walked out of Maya's apartment with Bruno. 3 weeks during which Maya had tried to return to her normal life, work at the diner, pay her bills, pretend that nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The envelope of money still sat under her mattress, untouched. Maya had pulled it out a dozen times, stared at it, imagined what it could do for her life. Pay off her hospital debt, cover rent for months, buy herself a winter coat that didn't have holes in the lining. But every time, she put it back. Taking Vincent Russo's money felt like accepting something she couldn't define, an obligation, a connection, a door opening into a world she didn't belong in. Her bruises had faded from purple to yellow-green. Her ribs still ached when she breathed too deeply, but she could work full shifts now without wanting to cry. Life was returning to its familiar rhythm of exhaustion and survival. Until the night a black SUV pulled up outside Romano's diner. Maya was wiping down tables when she saw it through the window. Her heart stuttered. She recognized the vehicle, or at least, she recognized what it represented. Nobody in this neighborhood drove cars like that unless they were either very successful or very dangerous. Sometimes both. The back door opened, and Marcus Chen stepped out. He was alone this time, wearing the same expensive suit and carrying a manila envelope. "Evening, Maya," he said as he entered, the bell chiming above his head. His tone was friendly, professional, as if they were old acquaintances. "Marcus." Maya set down her rag, very aware that Frank was watching from behind the counter with suspicious eyes. "What are you doing here?" "Mr. Russo sent me. He has a proposition for you." Marcus slid into one of the booths and gestured for Maya to sit across from him. "I don't want any propositions," Maya said, but she sat anyway. Her feet were aching, and pride didn't pay the bills. Marcus smiled slightly. "Hear me out first, then decide." He opened the envelope and pulled out several documents. "Mr. Russo owns a restaurant in Midtown. Russo's, you might have heard of it." Maya had. Everyone had. It was one of those places where reservations required a 2-month wait and entrees cost more than her weekly grocery budget. "He's looking for staff," Marcus continued. "Specifically, he's looking for someone with your experience. Someone hardworking, reliable, and," he paused meaningfully, "someone who understands the value of discretion. You're offering me a job?" Maya couldn't keep the skepticism out of her voice. "At a 5-star restaurant? I work at a neighborhood diner, Marcus. I carry plates and pour coffee. I'm not qualified for—" "You're more qualified than you think." Marcus interrupted gently. You have 3 years of service experience, you're punctual, you're professional, and according to Frank, he nodded toward the owner, who was definitely eavesdropping, you're the best waitress he's ever employed. Maya felt her cheeks flush. Frank said that? He did, when we asked him. Marcus pushed a document across the table. It was a job offer. Maya's eyes widened as she read the salary, 3 times what she made at Romano's, plus benefits, health insurance, paid time off. This is too much, Maya stammered. This is charity. It's not charity, Marcus said firmly. It's a job. You'll work for it. Hard. Russo's has high standards, and you'll be expected to meet them. But Mr. Russo believes you're capable. And frankly, so do I. Maya stared at the paper, her mind racing. This would change everything. She could pay off her debts, see a real doctor about her shoulder that still twinged painfully, maybe even save money for the first time in her life. But accepting meant accepting something from Vincent Russo, meant being connected to him even tangentially. Why? She asked finally. Why does he care about giving me a job? Marcus leaned back, considering his answer. Because you did something for him that can't be repaid with money. You protected the most important thing in his world when you had no reason to. You took a beating for a dog you'd just met. That kind of character, that kind of courage is rare. Mr. Russo values it. I don't want to owe him anything. You don't owe him anything, Marcus corrected. He owes you. This is him trying to balance the scales. That's all. Maya looked at Frank, who was pretending to organize the register while clearly listening to every word. She thought about her apartment with its broken elevator and thin walls, about eating ramen for dinner 4 nights a week, about choosing between electricity and groceries. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. Marcus stood, leaving the documents on the table. Take your time, the offer doesn't expire. When you're ready, call the number on that card. He paused at the door. For what it's worth, Maya, you deserve this. Not because of what you did for Bruno, but because of who you are. Don't let pride keep you from accepting something good. After he left, Frank came over and sat heavily in the booth across from Maya. You gonna tell me what that was about? Maya explained, editing out the parts about Vincent Russo's real identity and focusing on the job offer. When she finished, Frank was quiet for a long moment. You should take it, he said finally. Frank, Maya, listen to me. I love you like a daughter. You're the hardest worker I've got. But this place? He gestured around the worn diner. This is all I've got to offer. Minimum wage and whatever tips you can scrape together. That job? That's a future. That's health insurance and stability. That's a chance. It feels like accepting charity, Maya admitted. It's only charity if you don't earn it, Frank said wisely. And something tells me you'll earn every penny. 2 days later, Maya called the number on Marcus's card. A week after that, she started her first shift at Russo's. The restaurant was everything she'd imagined and more. Gleaming hardwood floors, crisp white tablecloths, and chandeliers that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. The kitchen staff moved with military precision, and the other servers carried themselves with a professionalism that made Maya feel hopelessly out of her depth. But she worked. She studied the menu until she could recite every ingredient, practiced carrying trays until her arms burned, and learned the subtle art of high-end service. She arrived early and stayed late. She asked questions and took criticism and refused to be intimidated by the opulence surrounding her. Vincent Russo never came to the restaurant during her shifts. Maya told herself she was relieved, told herself it was better this way, a clean separation between the job and the man who'd arranged it. But 3 weeks into her new position, Maya was summoned to the manager's office. Her heart pounded as she climbed the stairs, certain she'd done something wrong. Instead, she found Marcus waiting for her. You're doing well, he said without preamble. The manager says you're a quick learner, professional. The customers like you. Thank you, Maya said cautiously. Is that why you called me here? A performance review? Not exactly. Marcus gestured for her to sit. There's a situation that requires your presence. Mr. Russo would like you to come to a meeting tonight. Maya's stomach dropped. What kind of meeting? The kind where closure happens, Marcus said cryptically. The 3 men who attacked you at the diner, we found them. Mr. Russo wants to know what you'd like done about them. What I'd like? Maya stared at him. I don't understand. They're criminals. They should go to the police. They will, Marcus assured her. But first, Mr. Russo believes you deserve the opportunity to face them, to tell them what their actions cost you, to have a voice in what happens next. Maya's hands were shaking. I don't want to see them again. You don't have to, Marcus said gently. This is an offer, not an order. But Mr. Russo thought you might want closure, a chance to look them in the eye and know they can never hurt you again. Maya thought about those terrifying minutes in the diner, the pipe connecting with her shoulder, the kicks to her ribs, the fear that she might die protecting a dog she barely knew. And she thought about the weeks after, jumping at shadows, afraid every customer who walked through the door might be them coming back. Okay, she whispered. I'll come. The warehouse in Red Hook was not what Maya expected. It was clean, well lit, and surprisingly ordinary. Vincent Russo stood near the center, Bruno sitting calmly at his feet. When the dog saw Maya, his tail began to wag, and he limped toward her, the injury still healing but much improved. Hey, buddy, Maya said, crouching down despite her professional clothes. Bruno licked her face enthusiastically, and despite everything, she laughed. I missed you too. He's been asking about you, Vincent said, and Maya looked up, startled. The man who'd seemed so intimidating in her apartment now looked almost normal. Still powerful, still dangerous, but human. Every time someone new comes to the house, he checks to see if it's you. Maya stood, brushing dog hair off her skirt. He's doing better, his leg. The vet says he'll make a full recovery, thanks to you. Vincent's expression was serious. Are you ready for this? Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. Marcus opened a door, and the three men were brought in. They were handcuffed, flanked by security, and they looked terrified. When they saw Vincent, they went pale. When they saw Maya, recognition dawned on their faces. Miss Torres, Vincent said formally, these are the men who attacked you. They've been held accountable for their actions against Bruno and against you. But before we proceed further, I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak, to tell them what their actions cost you, or to ask them anything you'd like to know. Maya stared at the three men. The tall one with the spider web tattoo looked defiant but scared. The brick wall was sweating. The young one couldn't meet her eyes. Why? Maya asked finally. Her voice was steady, stronger than she felt. Why did you hurt me? I was just trying to help an injured animal. We didn't mean... The young one started, but the tall one cut him off. We were hired to find the dog. Any bulldog. There was money involved. We didn't know it was his. He jerked his head toward Vincent. Didn't know you'd fight so hard for it. I fought for him because he was helpless, Maya said. Because he was hurt and scared. Because protecting something vulnerable is what decent people do. She took a step closer. You could have killed me. Do you understand that? You kicked me so hard my ribs cracked I couldn't afford to see a doctor. I had to just hope nothing was permanently damaged. For weeks I jumped at every sound, afraid you'd come back. The young one was crying now. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, we never should have. No, you shouldn't have, Maya agreed. She looked at Vincent. What happens to them now? That depends on you, Vincent said quietly. If you want them prosecuted, I have evidence that will guarantee convictions. If you want something else, he left the sentence hanging. Maya understood what he wasn't saying. In Vincent Russo's world, justice didn't always come from courtrooms. She thought about those terrifying minutes, about the pain and fear, about how these men had hurt her without a second thought. But she also thought about the young one's tears, about how fear made people do terrible things, about how violence only begot more violence. Let them go, Maya said finally. The silence was absolute. Even Marcus looked shocked. Maya, Vincent started, but she held up her hand. Let them go, she repeated. But make sure they understand, make sure everyone understands, that if they ever hurt anyone again, if they ever come near me or this city again, there will be consequences, real ones. She looked at each man in turn. You get one chance to be better than you were. One chance to learn that hurting people has a cost, Don't waste it. Vincent studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Take them to the city limits, he told his security. Make sure they understand Miss Torres's terms, and make sure they understand what happens if those terms are violated. As the men were led out, the young one looked back at Maya. Thank you, he mouthed. After they were gone, Maya's legs gave out, and she sat heavily on a nearby chair. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her shaky and exhausted. Bruno immediately came over and laid his head in her lap, offering comfort. That was remarkably merciful, Vincent observed. Most people would want revenge. Revenge doesn't heal anything, Maya said, stroking Bruno's head. It just creates more pain, more fear. I don't want to be the kind of person who causes pain just because I've experienced it. Vincent sat in the chair next to her. For a while they were both quiet, the only sound Bruno's gentle breathing. You're doing well at the restaurant, Vincent said eventually. I love it, Maya admitted. It's hard work, but it's good work. Thank you for the opportunity. You earned it. Vincent pulled out an envelope, another one, and Maya's heart sank. Before you protest, this isn't money. It's a receipt. Your hospital debt from 6 months ago? It's been paid. The medical bills from the attack? Also paid. And there's a health insurance card in there. Full coverage through the restaurant's plan. Maya opened her mouth to argue, but Vincent continued. This isn't charity, Maya. This is what should have happened in the first place. You got hurt protecting my dog. Those medical bills are my responsibility, and the insurance is part of your employment package. Every employee at Russo's gets the same coverage. Why are you doing this? Maya asked, her voice thick with emotion. The job, the insurance, all of it. I just did what anyone should do. But most people wouldn't, Vincent said simply. You have no idea how rare you are, Maya Torres. In my world, everyone wants something. Everyone has an angle. But you? He shook his head in wonder. You protected Bruno because it was right. You refused my money because you didn't want to be bought. You showed mercy to the men who hurt you because you believe people can change. That kind of integrity, that kind of strength, deserves to be protected, deserves to be rewarded. I don't feel strong, Maya admitted. I feel scared most of the time. Scared of not making rent. Scared of getting sick. Scared of ending up alone. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Vincent said. It's doing the right thing despite the fear. You have more courage than most people I've met who carry weapons and act tough. Maya looked at him. Really looked at him. Beneath the expensive suit and the dangerous reputation was a father who'd loved his daughter. A man who kept promises. Someone who understood loss and loyalty. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything. For the job, for the insurance, for trusting me with Bruno when he needed help. Thank you, Vincent countered. For being the kind of person who helps. The world has too few of those. 6 months later, Maya stood in her new apartment, a one-bedroom in a safe neighborhood with an elevator that worked and windows that let in actual sunlight. She'd saved enough from her job at Russo's to afford it, and for the first time in her adult life, she wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. On her refrigerator was a photo, Maya, Vincent, and Bruno, taken at the restaurant on a quiet afternoon. Bruno was between them, looking ridiculously pleased with himself, and both humans were smiling genuine smiles. It wasn't a friendship exactly. Their worlds were too different for that. But it was something. A connection forged in unlikely circumstances. A reminder that sometimes doing the right thing led to unexpected rewards. Vincent still came to the restaurant occasionally, always bringing Bruno, who would abandon his dignified position at his owner's feet the moment he saw Maya. The staff had learned not to comment on the way their intimidating boss's face softened when he watched Maya with his dog, or the way he'd increased her salary twice without her asking, or the way he made sure her section was never overbooked, her schedule never overwhelming. He's protective of you, Marcus had told her once. Like family. Maya wasn't sure about that, but she knew that Vincent Russo had kept his word. She was protected. She was supported. And she was given the chance to build a life she'd only dreamed about, all because one rainy night she'd chosen compassion over fear. chosen to help rather than walk away, chosen to believe that even an injured bulldog in an alley deserved kindness. Sometimes, Maya thought as she got ready for her evening shift, the smallest acts of courage create the biggest ripples. She'd saved a dog, and in return, had somehow saved herself. As she headed out the door, her phone buzzed with a text from Vincent. "Bruno insists we visit the restaurant tonight. He says you owe him treats." Maya smiled and typed back, "Tell Bruno he's spoiled, but yes, I saved him some chicken." The response came quickly. "We both are. Spoiled by knowing you. See you tonight." Maya tucked her phone away and stepped out into the New York evening. The city stretched out before her, still challenging, still chaotic, but somehow more manageable now. She had a good job, a safe home, and the knowledge that sometimes, against all odds, doing the right thing really did matter. And waiting for her at Russo's would be a bulldog who thought she hung the moon, and a man who'd learned that true strength came in the most unexpected packages. Sometimes debts couldn't be repaid with money. Sometimes they were paid with opportunity, with protection, with the chance to become more than you'd ever thought possible. Maya Torres had learned that lesson well, and she'd never forget it.